In this video, I explain how to work with equations. So for example, let's look at this simple equation x equal 10. And I'm representing this equation as a balance. So on one side of the balance is an x, on the other side is a 10. The fact that the balance is level or horizontal means that the x has the same value as 10. So that we can say x equal 10. Now the idea of working with equations is to keep this balance level. And to keep it level means that if I do something to one side of the equation, I have to do exactly the same thing to the other side, otherwise it won't stay balanced. So for example, if we say x has the value 10, and then I write an equation where I say 2x equal 10, the balance won't be level because I've doubled the left side, but I haven't changed the right side. That's an unbalanced equation, so it isn't horizontal. Therefore, we say 2x is not equal to 10. So if we start with our equation x equal 10, and I want to double it, then I have to double both sides. So I can say 2x equals 2 times 10, which is 20. So notice that in this case, I've doubled the x's on the left-hand side of the balance, so I've had to double the 10s on the other side to keep it balanced. If I wish to return to my original equation, I simply halve what's on the left-hand side and half what's on the right-hand side, and then I'll return back to the original equation x equals 10. And I've kept the balance level all of this time. Okay, so how can I use this information that whatever I do on one side, I have to do to the other side to keep the balance level? How can I use this to solve a problem involving a slightly more complex equation? So here I have an equation 2y equals 3x plus 10. So in the diagram of the balance, I've got 2y objects on one side, and on the other I have 3 x's and a 10. And I want to rearrange this equation, keeping it balanced, so that I can say, what is this equation telling me in terms of x? So I want to write it as x equal something. So in other words, I want to make x the subject of the equation. I'm going to reorganize this equation, keeping it balanced all of the time. So looking at this equation, I want x by itself. At the moment on the right hand side, I have a 3x's plus 10. So the first thing I want to do is get rid of that 10 there because it's a nuisance. But I can't move it I can't move it over to the other side because that would create an unbalanced equation. So I'm going to do something to both sides of the equation to get rid of that 10. And what I'm going to do is subtract 10. So I subtract 10 from the left side and I subtract 10 from the right side, and let's have a look what happens. I end up with an equation 2y minus 10 is equal in value to 3x plus 10 minus 10. I've represented the minuses as weights pulling upwards on the balance. So positive weights pull down, negative weights pull up, and where I have a plus 10 pulling up, a plus 10 pulling down and a minus 10 pulling up, those two cancel out, so they disappear without affecting the balance. So now the equation's looking a bit better. I've got 3 x's on one side And I do want the x's by themselves on one side, and on the other I've got 2y's minus 10. And I have to decide, how am I going to have just one x on the right hand side? Well, I could move I could take away 2 of those x's from both sides, but that wouldn't give me x by itself, because then I'd have x's on both sides of the equation. I only want one x on one side of the equation and something to do with y on the other. So instead of subtracting 2 x's, I'm going to divide this into 3. So I'm going to divide the left-hand side into 3, divide by 3 into the left-hand side and the right-hand side. Let's see what happens. So now on the left-hand side I've got the 2y's and minus the 10, but I'm dividing them into 3 equal sections. And on the right-hand side I've got 3 x's also divided into 3 equal sections. So I can simplify this a bit further. And now I've got 2y divided by 3 minus 10 divided by 3. So the 2y's have been divided into thirds and the 10 has been divided into thirds. And on the right hand side I've got x by itself, which is basically what I wanted. I can now just swap them around. If they're balanced one way, they're always going to be balanced. Doesn't matter which side they're on. What this is telling me now is the x is equal in value to 2y's cut into 3 minus 10 divided by 3. So this is the result that I was wanting to find. So that's the end of my manipulation, and notice I've kept the balance level all of this time. So whatever I've done on the left, I've also done it on the right, and that makes sure that I haven't made the equation unbalanced. I've kept that equal value all the way through.